Good morning to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista. Welcome to our tropical weather outlook video for today, Saturday, July 12th, 2025. Let's start off with a look at climatology of what to expect in the Atlantic for the second third of the month. Since we are now in July 12th, we are now in the second third of the month. And where do we typically look at development from July 11th to 20th? The second third of the month in the Atlantic. And as you can see, most of the points of origin are in the Gulf and off the southeast coast. And there are actually a few points here that we begin to see fill up in the western MDR as we head into the month of July, as things slowly and progressively become slightly more favorable for development in the tropical Atlantic, although obviously we're not looking at that area right now. But it typically starts to fill up a little bit more. We start to see conditions become a little bit more favorable. And this will only become more favorable and as we head into the last third of July and especially into early August. And I'll show you the maps once we get to those times. For each of those time periods, you will see how a lot more of these dots begin to fill up. I don't want to do that. How a lot of these dots begin to fill up here in the Eastern Atlantic, especially as we head into and through the month of August. But the focus is off the southeast coast and in the Gulf of Mexico. And those are coincidentally the areas, especially here in the Northern Gulf, as I've been talking about for the last several days, especially yesterday. We're going to have to watch those areas very closely over the near future, especially as we head into next week, as it looks like we could potentially get development in the Gulf of Mexico. And I wanted to bring this map up today because I wanted to represent to you that, climatologically speaking, these are the areas typically favored this time of year, or at least most favored this time of year for development. But right now, on the National Hurricane Center homepage, there is nothing happening over the next 7 days. Although, as I'm going to show you throughout today, I wouldn't be surprised if they add a hatched area here in the northeastern Gulf, probably within the next day or so. So I don't expect that this map of no activity expected during the next 7 days will last for much longer. In the Eastern Pacific, though, things are also quiet. As I've been saying, the Eastern Pacific is entering a slumber, and that's probably going to last for the short-term future as well. Here's a satellite image of the Atlantic. And this is from the NOAA directly from the National Hurricane Center instead of showing the tropical tidbits loop that I typically show. Just because this is a wider image and kind of a little bit more higher definition, and I just wanted to show this map. And this is a view of the entire Atlantic. And as obvious, you can see coming off the coast of Africa, we have lots of Saharan dust. That is very typical. We also have the hint of the ITCZ here in the tropical Atlantic, which you can see here, especially through a lot of this cloud cover activity stretching from off the coast of Central America throughout the southern MDR. And you can also see there's probably a tropical wave in here. And then off the eastern coast of Africa, you could see, especially where that very strong tropical wave was yesterday and a few days ago, and a lot of people were talking about that strong wave coming off the coast of Africa. Well, now you can see, at least on the latest satellite image, it pretty much went poof and there's nothing else in the Eastern Atlantic right now, and that is to be expected. Conditions in the Eastern Atlantic are not favorable right now, and we typically don't really look at the Eastern Atlantic anyway for development this time of year. As I just showed you, if anywhere, we look at the Western Atlantic, and of course, especially throughout the Southeast and in the Gulf, closer to home, as we typically do. It's still the early season, and I actually want to zoom in here off the southeast coast, and now we're actually going to flip to the tropical tidbits loop, and you can especially see here we have a front that is stationed just off the southeast coast, and especially I want to draw your attention to this area of convective activity here that's just off the coast of northern Florida and the Carolinas, because this is the area, or at least the piece of energy in particular, across this entire front that we're going to have to watch, because as these setups typically go, as a front moves off the East Coast, the southernmost end of the front breaks off, and the piece of energy, depending on whether or not it's able to stay over water, hangs around and tries to develop. And that's what's going to happen, especially here. As you can see, there's definitely quite a bit of energy because there's a lot of convective activity right just off the southeast coast here. And we're going to have to watch this as this eventually traverses south, because we'll have a high pressure building over the United States, and we're also going to have a high pressure, the Bermuda High building off the southeast and over Bermuda. And this is going to force whatever piece of energy, especially on the southern end, over Florida. And I'm actually going to show you that right now. Lots of heavy rain is going to be over Florida for the next several days. In fact, I'll just show you the Weather Prediction Center forecast right now for the next week. And you can see lots of rain expected for pretty much the entire peninsula of Florida. In fact, some areas here, especially across southern Florida, are being forecast to have as much as potentially upwards of half an inch of rain. And of course, because that's a lot of rain, there is also the threat for excessive rainfall. And, this is flash flooding. And for day 3, this is for Monday, from the Weather Prediction Center, we have a slight risk for flash flooding and excessive rainfall over portions of central and southern Florida. And I bring that up especially because, as I always say, rainfall is the #1 killer when it comes to tropical cyclones, even when we do not have a tropical cyclone, as we just have been seeing over the past week. With all of these heavy rainfall flooding events across the country, in Texas, in North Carolina, in Chicago too, and even in New Mexico. You do not need a tropical cyclone to produce heavy rainfall. And obviously, as I say as well, heavy rainfall is a huge killer, and often a killer that is very much thrown under the bus and thrown under the radar, and usually catches a lot of people by surprise. So that's why I'm bringing it up. Lots of heavy rainfall expected for Florida over the next several days, as this piece of energy here off the southeast coast is going to come in. And then we're going to have to watch to see whether or not it's able to get its act together in the Gulf of Mexico and actually develop and become a tropical system. And with that, I'm going to show you the GFS here, the latest 6C GFS run for today, July 12th, obviously. And you can see how this plays out. We have our piece of energy here associated with the front off the southeast coast. And then eventually, the southernmost end breaks off. And you can see there's definitely some energy that already tries to get going, but moves over Florida. And then this is as we head into early next week, Monday and Tuesday, lots of heavy rain expected over Florida, as I just showed you. And then eventually, as we head into the middle to latter portion of the week, you can see there's definitely some energy here in the Gulf of Mexico. Certainly some sort of surface low tries to develop and tries to get its act together. And this is Wednesday and Thursday next week in the Gulf, before it eventually seemingly moves inland over the north central and central eastern portions of the Gulf. Although whether or not and where this makes landfall, and that's not really a particular concern right now. But eventually this heads in over portions of the northern Gulf as we head into late Thursday and early Friday. And I should also mention that in and of itself is probably going to bring quite a bit of heavy rain to portions of the central Gulf too. So we're not just talking about a rainfall threat for Florida, but we're probably also going to be talking about a rainfall threat for portions of the northern Gulf as well, as we head into the latter portion of next week. As you could especially see, this energy moves in and then kind of hangs around the central northern Gulf and deep south throughout Friday and throughout Saturday, and then eventually slowly begins to move off to the east and absorb itself with some other low pressure energy that seems to be over the United States as we head into the end of next week. And that is something we're going to have to pay attention, because we're going to be talking about development and we're going to be talking about heavy rain. which is obviously tropical development, obviously gets a lot of people's attention. And then heavy rainfall, something we've been seeing a lot of, causing flash flooding, which has caused, especially over the last weeks, quite a bit of death and destruction. So that's why we're going to have to especially pay close attention to what happens in the Gulf next week. And the GFS is not necessarily too keen on this becoming a very strong system, obviously. Um, you could clearly see it does not actually, fully become a tropical system here on the GFS, but you can see that the energy is there. And as I showed you, especially yesterday, and I'll probably show you again over the coming days, sea surface temperatures, especially in the northern Gulf, are very warm. And as I just showed you early on in today's video, climatologically speaking, we typically watch the northern Gulf the most for development this time of year in this portion of July. So we'll have to see if this does indeed develop and become our next tropical system of the hurricane season. Obviously, the next name on the list is Dexter, and if not, we're still going to have to watch this anyways for potential heavy rain for portions of Florida and then across the southern states, the southern Gulf states as well as we head into the end of next week, regardless of whether or not this develops. So a lot to keep on top of here when it comes to the weather over the next several days. And I'll certainly keep on top of the tropics for you, especially the tropical aspect and the rainfall aspect too. I'll definitely be monitoring it closely for you guys over the next several days, which is why I encourage you, if you are new to my channel and you like this kind of content and you are interested, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you can get videos the moment I upload them. And with that being said, I'm going to wrap up for today's video because there's not much else to talk about for now, but I'm pretty sure over the next several days that'll probably change. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. As always, I'll be back with more tomorrow.